All right, y'all. We got everybody? Awesome. Well, good afternoon. Oh, come on, y'all. That's a week. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Y'all, my name's Jonathan Miller. I live up the street from you in Charleston, South Carolina. Has anybody ever been to Charleston, South Carolina? Raise your hand. Yes. Cool. Good number of you have. If you haven't been, Charleston is a very, very super old historic city at the beach in South Carolina. It's kind of like the Disney World of old stuff. If you want to go see a really old house, it's a great place to do it. All you got to do is hang a left out of the school parking lot and drive northeast for about 6 hours and 42 minutes. You'll run right into it. But I live in Charleston. I travel throughout the school year a lot. I go to over 250 schools a year from Maryland to Florida, all the way out to Colorado and everywhere in between, sharing my books, The Adventures of Sammy, The Wonder Dachshund, and talking to students about what it's like to be an author and an illustrator. Y'all are first grade and third graders, right? Yeah. So we've all figured out the difference between an author and illustrator by now, right? Yeah. All right, cool. I like that confidence. I'm going to skip that for time. Do any of y'all in here happen to have a dachshund for a pet at home? Are there any dachshund owners? All right, a few of you. Raise your hand if you don't know what a dachshund is before we continue. A dachshund is a type of dog, and you've seen one before, but you maybe didn't realize they were called dachshunds because dachshunds go by a lot of different nicknames. Dachshunds are the funny little dogs you see that have big floppy ears. They've got short little legs. They're long like hot dogs. Most people know them as the weenie dog, the wiener dog, the hot dog, or the sausage dog. Raise your hand if you know someone that has a dachshund and you've seen one before. All right, cool. Y'all, my friend had a dachshund named Sammy, and my friend used to travel for her job all the time, so she would ask me to dog sit Sammy for her. And after watching Sammy off and on for a year, I started to think Sammy would make a pretty cool and interesting main character for a set of books. So I sat down and I wrote some stories around Sammy. Do y'all want to see a picture of the real dog Sammy? This is the real dog Sammy here. I took him out to the beach with me one day, and he needed a bath when he got home, so he got a bath and a shampoo mohawk, which he was a big fan of. Now, a few years before I met the real Sammy, I got to college, and just for fun, I started making cards and small pieces of art out of something you probably used before here at school or at home, construction paper. Raise your hand if you've ever taken color paper, construction paper, and either torn a bunch of shapes up or cut a bunch of shapes out. And once you had a pile of shapes, you glued the pieces together one by one to collage and make a bigger picture. All right, cool. That's what I was doing, and it all started out pretty simple with just a few pieces of paper here and there. But people saw my art and they liked it, so I kept making bigger and bigger pieces of artwork out of more and more pieces of paper, and eventually I made art out of paper that looked like this. And I decided this would be a really cool way to illustrate a picture book solely out of cut pieces of paper. This is an original picture from my very first book, Sammy's Last Week in Charleston, and everything in this picture, from the blue background down to the tiny little stars and stripes on the flag, are pieces of paper I've cut into shapes, and then I glue the shapes down and I layer them to build my pictures. I'm going to walk around in just a minute so y'all can all see this up close a lot better. But before I do, I have a more simplified version of how I build my art I want to share with you. A couple school years ago, I worked with some students in Georgia, and they wrote and they illustrated their very own picture book about their teacher's pet duck, Mr. Crackers. Now, I worked with the school on 5 occasions. I never once thought to ask her how she ended up with a pet duck, but it was a rural part of Georgia, so I assume maybe everybody had one there for a pet. But Mr. Crackers is made out of paper, too. He's just a lot fewer pieces, so I can walk y'all through the steps faster this way. One of the first things I do when I'm making art is I draw the picture out the size I want it to be and the way that I want it to look. If I draw the picture out first, this becomes a blueprint to help me cut the pieces out to the correct size, but it also helps me plan out what order I'm going to glue all those pieces down. Y'all going to learn as y'all go through school, as you go through life, the more planning you put into things, typically the better they turn out. So I do a lot of planning when it comes to writing and making art. The next thing I do is I pick out all the different colors of paper I want to use to build that illustration. And once I get my colors of paper picked out, I start to cut shapes out of all those colors. So this is all the pieces I'm going to use to build Mr. Crackers. Once I get my shapes cut out, then I glue them down, I layer them, I puzzle piece it back together, and it starts to kind of look like a duck. But what's he missing? He's missing eyes, he's missing details. So the final step I do for the artwork, once all the pieces are glued down and everything's in place, I go back at the very end with the black Sharpie marker and I outline all my shapes. The black outlines make the colors stand out a lot more, and the little details like his eyes and nose and stuff, I do that with the marker so the picture looks more realistic. Now, Mr. Crackers, again, he didn't take that long to do. He only took me about 20 minutes, but I bring him to show you because that's the same steps I took to build this art here, which is this is thousands of pieces of paper. I'm going to walk around the room. As I come around to you, I want y'all to look at the leaves in the trees. If you look at the leaves, you'll see they're all tiny little squares. If you look at an angle towards the windows and columns, you might be able to see some of the different layers of paper too, but I want y'all to be able to see this close up. So I'm going to do like 2 rows at a time and then have you scoot up a little bit so we create a path. But I want y'all to be able to see this up close. And I'll talk to you about it a little bit more when I get on the microphone, but just like Mr. Crackers and Duck, I got every one of these shapes out. I glued every one of these shapes down, and then in the end, I went back and outlined and gave detail to the picture. Y'all had several people ask how long it took, so I figured I'd just tell you all that on the microphone up here. This one picture, from start to finish, took me 40 hours worth of work. 40 hours is the same amount of time that y'all spend here at school for one whole week to do one picture for a book. And on average, I spend about 25 hours. Some pictures take longer than this, some take way less. But on average, I spend about 25 hours per page building my pictures out of paper for my books. So I bring this art to show you, and I spend time talking about it because I want y'all to understand the things you're going to see on the screen. They're going to be made out of paper too, just like this. But I also want y'all to understand when you see pictures in books, realize the illustrators work very hard to make those pictures for people to enjoy. And the cool thing about making my art this way is spending all that time is that when you see the pages of the book close up, you'll see shadows on the artwork from the layers of paper, and those shadows help create depth. They make the pages of books look a little 3D. And y'all going to have a set of these books for your school library, so check it out and look at them and read them, and you'll see what I mean when I say they kind of look like they're 3D because of the paper layers. Again, I'm going to read a book to you. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the book as we go along. At the end of the story, if anybody has any questions, we'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. What you got real quick, though?
How old were you when you made that?
I was 27 years old when I made this.
What?
Y'all gasping like I said 127, but yeah, that's don't even ask me how old I am now if y'all going to react like that. But
40.
That's a good guess. I'm 44. 44. Y'all confusing me about my age now. I'm 44. Y'all, I'm not 77 yet. Y'all, I'm going to read this book to you, and at the end we'll do questions. But this is The Adventures of Sammy the Wonder Dachshund, Sammy in Space. It was, and y'all do me a favor, sit crisscross applesauce so the people behind you can see. But this is Sammy in Space. It was early in the morning, but Sammy couldn't wait to get to work. He was very excited because this company was announcing some really big news. The internet's full of debate about whether or not Pluto meets the definition of a planet, explained Sammy's boss. One of you will have to go to outer space to make observations so we can settle this once and for all. We thought long and hard, and Sammy, you've been selected for the job. Sammy couldn't believe it. Ever since he was a puppy, he dreamed of traveling to space. He began to think back to the summers he spent at space camp with all of his friends. This was my first flashback I ever did for a book. We all know what a flashback is, right? Yeah. When you write part of your story in the past. Well, since it was the past, I picked the past I knew the most about, 1989. This is me right here, y'all, as a fourth grader. It's exactly what I looked like back when I was in the fourth grade, too. I had very, very yellow hair, and I had extremely large eyeballs as a fourth grader. Sammy remembered playing astronaut in his living room. Here y'all can see Sammy's using his imagination. So he's wearing a goldfish bowl for a helmet. And just so people knew that was a goldfish bowl, I stuck a goldfish in a cup down there at the bottom. Sammy shouted at his boss, bringing him back to the present. This won't be an easy task. Normally it takes future astronauts 20 months to go through training. But we need you to be ready in just 3 weeks. You have to get into shape, train hard, and study a lot. Report to NASA's astronaut training program first thing in the morning. Sammy got to NASA and couldn't wait to begin. As he walked down the hall, he stopped to take a look at all the brave animals who'd gone into space before him. All these animals y'all see on the wall, except for that kangaroo, those are real animals that have been sent to outer space in real life. Turtles, ants, worms, guinea pigs, monkeys, frogs, fruit flies, fish, and mice have all been sent to space. Sammy would have to go through flight school so he could learn to fly planes and know what to do if any problems came up. On the first day, they taught Sammy how to use a parachute. He had to prepare for his mission by studying for hours and hours and hours. At the end of the week, Sammy was ready and got to fly a plane on his own. Next came Sammy's survival training, where he learned to build a shelter, start a fire, and use maps in case of a crash landing. After Sammy made it back from the wilderness, he rode in the Weightless Wonder. It was a large plane that flew in a special way, making Sammy float like he would in space. Sammy had to learn how everything in a space shuttle worked. This took some time, but he caught on quickly. This picture here is the longest picture I've ever made for any of my books. I spent 83 hours building all that out of paper. Yeah. You will never, ever see another flight simulator in any of my books again for that reason. But there's one really tiny mistake in this picture. As soon as I thought the one up, I mess up or I make mistakes. I forgot to do something super important. Quietly raise your hand if your teachers ever ask you to double check your work before you turn it in. All right, y'all gotta get in the habit of doing that because you gotta double check your work as an adult too. I worked on this picture off and on for about 3 weeks. I was glad to be done with it. I sent it off to the printers. I didn't double check my work. I got the book back for the very first time, and I was reading in school, and I looked up and realized after all the hard work I'd put into it, I forgot to draw 2 more little lines to finish making the inside of that dude's ear. Yeah. Y'all see how he's forever stuck now staring at Sammy all funny in this picture? That's because I can't hear anything, and that's all my fault. So always double check your work, triple check your work if you have to, or you can leave ears or something even more important out of your work. After more tests, Sammy was fitted for his spacesuit. He was starting to feel like a real astronaut. He had to get used to wearing his spacesuit, so he got into a huge pool and practiced doing tasks underwater so now the suit would fill in space. Then the big day came. Sammy couldn't believe it. As he sat in his shuttle on the launch pad, he thought about all the hard work he went through to get there. And then the countdown began. Y'all want to count it down for me? All right, 10.
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good job, y'all. That was a late afternoon pop quiz to see if everybody can still count down from 10, and y'all all passed. The first stop on Sammy's mission was the International Space Station, where he met with astronauts from around the world. He was able to look at and collect data from some of the closest planets in the solar system. He saw and measured the smallest planet, Mercury. He viewed the clouds of Venus, the hottest planet. Sammy looked at Mars, called the Red Planet, because it's covered in rusty dust. Sammy left the space station for a quick walk on the moon before he went to get a closer look at the other planets. Y'all see all these paw prints down here? I did that to be funny because this is a take on the moon landing photo, and he's the dog. But this book came out, and my dad called me, and he was like, "Hey, Jonathan, I got a question for you. I love the new book and everything, but if Sammy's wearing boots, why would you see his paw prints on the moon?" And I had to be like, "Dad, are you kidding right now? You do realize Sammy's flying an airplane 12 pages ago, right?" That joke worked for that one teacher back there. It did not work for one of you students. If y'all want to know what I'm doing tonight, I'm going to sit at a Hampton Inn down in Cape Coral, Florida, and rewrite that joke. But from the shuttle, Sammy observed our largest planet, Jupiter. He flew around the rings of Saturn. Sammy saw the planet that spins on his side, Uranus. That's what y'all decided to laugh at there. All right. Then Sammy saw the stormy planet of Neptune. And finally, Sammy got close enough to examine Pluto. He was very surprised by what he found. With his research finished, it was time for Sammy and the crew to head home to Earth. Sammy arrived home to cheers and pats on the back. He was awarded a gold pin for his first flight into outer space. The next day, Sammy went to work to turn in his final report. He concluded, Pluto's size affects its gravitational pull in relation to its orbital zone. It'll have to be classified as a dwarf planet. Wow, that's the smartest thing I've ever heard in my life, said Sammy's boss. Another job, well done. Sammy, we got big plans for you in the future. Now go home and get some rest. And that night, Sammy decided to sleep under the stars. As he fell asleep, he thought about his training and his trip to space. Sammy realized that some of our dreams may be as big as the stars, but with enough hard work, time, and dedication, anything can be possible. The end. What did y'all think? Did y'all like the book? Enjoy it? All right. Now, y'all, with the time we have left, I want to see, does anybody in this room have a question? A who, what, when, why, how, where question about that book, about books in general, about being an author, or being an illustrator? Not something you want to know about, tell me about your dogs or anything, but something you want to know about one of those things. And here's a couple rules real quick for question asking. If I call on you, say it really nice and loud, and y'all listen to what that person's asking. How about you with the dinosaurs, Christmas dinosaurs on your shirt there? Go ahead.
How much hours did it take to make that whole book?
I'm not sure hour-wise, because I always have good intentions when I start working on a new book of keeping track of my hours. But I write those hours down, and somewhere on that piece, somehow that piece of paper always either gets cut up and glued down or disappears from my office desk whenever I'm working on books and stuff. So what I do is I kind of keep up with how many days I spend working on books. And some days I might work 4 hours on my book. Some days I might work 14 hours on my book. It depends on what I got going on that week or that day. But all in all, to create this story I shared with you today, this is the longest book I've ever done. To write this story, to edit and rewrite it 13 times until I have my final draft, to make the pictures for the book and do the computer work I got to do to get the books ready so copies can be made. I spent 105 days working on that book. Yeah. I don't know hour-wise because I don't keep up with the hours. And if I thought about getting a time clock so I could punch in and punch out when I worked on it, but that's going to make me feel like I have too real of a job. So I don't want to do that. How about you in the Buccaneers shirt there?
Like before, that last page, you could have put, the wall of all the animals that went to space. You could have put a Sammy on there.
That was the game plan. That's very observant of you. The game plan was I'd have Sammy come back to Earth, get his gold pin. The next page, he would get his astronaut portrait taken. Then he'd go to work. But to add that extra picture, I'd have to add 7 more pages to the book. Pages come in sets of 8, so I have to add 7 more pages or lose 7 pages. So what I ended up doing, I made the artwork for it. So what I ended up doing was I used Sammy's portrait for the very back of the book. Because I figured if you flip the book over, this is the absolute last thing you could see pertaining to this book. And Sammy's an astronaut by this point, so I used it for the back. And this video of how I made this is there's a sped up version of how I made this on YouTube if you want to check it out later.
Yeah,
let's see here. How about you with the penguins on your pajamas or shirt?
Which book is your favorite book?
Which book's my favorite? These books are kind of like my kids, y'all, so it's hard to pick an absolute favorite, but I'll tell you what I like about each one of them. My first book was Sammy's Last Week in Charleston. I love making that book because I got to make all the places where I live out of paper. The safari book that y'all saw on video, that was my favorite story, like word-wise, that I wrote, because that was the first story that I wrote dialogue for the characters to say back and forth. When you write words or create words for your characters to say, they can tell part of your story in a fun and interesting way. So I love writing that book. The space book I enjoyed making because one of the many things I wanted to be when I was very little was an astronaut. Also be a Ninja Turtle, y'all, but none of that worked out for me. But this book did make me feel like a kid again making it. And then my family tree book, my 4th book, I love making that book because I did a lot of research to write it. And I learned a lot of things I didn't know before I wrote it. And I made all the dogs in that book look like real people's dogs. So I made a lot of people happy by putting the likeness of their dachshund in there. I'm going to call on you, dude. I don't like doing it because you're wearing that Chiefs pajamas, but go ahead. Yep. I did have to get NASA's permission to do this. There was a guy named Bruce that worked for NASA at the time, and he was their brand manager. So they're very particular how their logo looks. So you do have to get it approved. And so I made it out of paper. I sent a picture of it to him. He approved it, and I could use it in the book. And to make the NASA logo, I wanted to get the details pretty good in there because they are particular about it. So I made the NASA logo really big out of paper and scanned it by itself. And that way I could duplicate it several times and shrink its size down, but I only had to make it one time. How about you in the very back in the brown t-shirt there? In the book series? Sammy in the book series, if he were a person, he would be a recent college graduate, entry-level job age dog. He'd be 22, 23 years old, just starting out in the world, paying rent and car insurance and all that good stuff he'll get to do one day. So, and I made him that age in the book because that's how old I was when I got out and started making paper art. All right, how about you in the Bills hat? You gonna sit right next to that guy? Y'all are friends today? I guess. All right, go ahead.
Is Sammy like saluting with his hand?
Yeah, he's saluting those dudes with his hand. He's all happy to do that. How about, let's see, you in the green shirt, it's got the Notre Dame shirt there.
Why did you, how many stars did you put on the last page?
How many stars did I put on the last page? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I have no clue, y'all. When I made the stars, and I wish I'd have done this when I made them. Y'all don't worry about y'all have this book in your school libraries. Count them in your free time and report back to me. But the stars in the book, I wanted them to look real. So what I ended up doing to create the stars was I got a really big, thick sheet of black paper, and then I took a bunch of different size nails that I bought at a hardware store, and I popped holes in the paper over and over again. And I wish that would have been a pretty easy thing to be like count every time I punched a hole. And I wish I would have, but I didn't. And once I got all my holes in the paper, I take my paper up to a really big window on a sunny day, and I set up a camera and I photographed it. And you can't really tell here, but because it's digital. But when you see the stars close up in my actual book, they have a warmth and a twinkle to them, and they look like real stars in the sky because what you're seeing on the page is sunlight coming through pinholes. It's a really cool special effect. It only took me 45 minutes to do because I was able to punch the holes in there. How about you in the blue, navy blue shirt with the glasses? Yep.
When he was in the official recording, what about the blood rush to his head?
When he's doing what now?
When he was flipped upside down in the shuttle. In the simulator. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you're hanging out with my dad and taking my books a little too literally here. This is freeze frame too, so it's not like he's stuck this way. If I animated this, I'd have them flipping and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's not good to be upside down for too long because you will pass out at some point. But how about you with group on your pajamas there? Yeah, I've got a new book that'll be out in October about Sammy and dinosaurs. Sammy's going back in time to look for the weenie source, which is the largest dachshund to ever roam the earth. And then I also did a book. I'll give you a preview of it, but I did a book about Sammy's family tree. Give me 1 second to get it. And there'll be a part 2 and a part 3 to this book, but spoiler alert. But it starts in caveman times, and it works its way to present day. And every dog in the book have done something goofy to help people throughout human history. Like this dog here created Caesar salad dressing for Caesar salads from the Roman Empire. There's a dog in here that created pirate fashion, the way we see pirates dress. There's even a dog in here that created the dog treat. So it's a funny, quirky book about his family members. I'll give y'all one Easter egg from it. This is exactly what I look like in the summertime when I'm making my books. And then also, when I was making the spots on this dog's outfit, I decided to hide some states in the spots. So we got North Carolina, Nevada, South Carolina. And what state is that?
Florida.
Florida, very good, y'all. How about you in the red short sleeve shirt back there? Yes.
How did you make these books so good?
This comes from years of practice. And everything I shared with y'all today is stuff I learned sitting exactly where you're sitting today. I listened to my teachers when I went through school, and I read a lot of books that helped make me a better writer. I listened to my teachers and I practiced editing and rewriting my stories. That made me a better writer. And I loved art, and art's something I practiced from the time I was 4 years old until still present day. And over time, I got better and better art from those years of practice. Reading and writing art like sports. The more you do it, the more you practice it now, the better you're going to be at it in the future. How about you in the red snowflake pajamas back there? What's my least favorite book? If I had to pick a least favorite, it used to be the Safari book, because when I made my Safari book the first time, the first edition of it, there were like 6 pictures in that book that I felt like I kind of rushed, and I wasn't very happy with them. So when I sold the first like 5,000 copies of the book and we did a reprint of it, I updated and I replaced those 6 pictures with new pictures. And I like that book a lot better now. But originally, if I had to pick my least favorite, it would have been the first edition of the Safari book. How about you in the camouflage shirt there? You're so camouflaged, I didn't even see you sitting there. You asked why I wanted to be an author? Yeah, I called on you, but I'll do your question just a minute. She said, what are you wearing? What is all that on your shirt? Oh, Disney. Okay. So what's your question? The Disney princess shirt first. Why do I want it? Because I need a job? No, I got into being an author, y'all, through artwork. I was making paper art. I loved doing it. I was like, how do I get paid to make paper art every day? And then when I met the real dog, Sammy, it clicked. I can write books about a winter dog that works for the internet, tie my art to it. More people will see my art through a book. And books could be copied, and I can sell those copies. And that fund me to do this full time. All right, you in the camouflage shirt there.
What made you be an author?
Again, I got into doing all this through art. So art was the first inspiration for my books, and Sammy was the actual inspiration for the books themselves. How about you in the orange shirt there?
Mistakes or dog traits?
Y'all got to practice your patterns and your colors after I leave here today. What was your question?
Mistakes or dog treats?
Does he like food or dog treats? I mean, the real dog Sammy loved all kinds of things. In the book series, I have Sammy kind of do things people do. So the book series, he eats people food throughout the book series. What was your question in the orange shirt? Hey, everybody sit crisscross applesauce. I won't call on you if you're sitting up on your knees. Go ahead. And y'all, let's listen to his question, because this might be what you're wanting to ask.
How old were you when you started making books?
I was 24 years old when I decided this is what I'm doing with my life. I was 28 years old when my very first book came out. So this took 4 years of hearing way more no's than I heard yeses. Things didn't always go as quick as I wanted them to, or necessarily the way I wanted them to, but I believed in this. I knew in my heart, y'all, this is what I'll do with my life. And I worked harder in those 4 years than I probably did the 24 years leading up to it, all combined, but 4 years later, I did have a book to show for it. So the overall theme of the book I shared with you today was that Sammy had a big goal and he had a big dream, but he had to work hard to make it happen. And that's something I learned a lot about over those 4 years. Hard work does pay off. You can't quit the first time something doesn't go your way. You got to believe in yourself and work super, super hard if you're going to see your goals be accomplished. Y'all, we got time for 3 more questions, so let's do this. Everybody put their hands down. If you are in first grade and you have the best question in first grade, raise your hand. Yes, you in the Bengals jersey there.
How much hours or minutes did it take to make all those books?
I'm not sure, again, hours or minute-wise, but if I had to make each one of those 4 book titles over again, I would have spent 360 days, almost a full year making those books. But, y'all, I only got to make the book one time, and then thousands of copies of the books are made from there. When they get low, you just print more copies of the books.
Wow.
All right, third grade. Who's got the best one in third grade? You in the white Adidas shirt there? You make mistakes when you do books, but you can kind of catch those mistakes and fix them by your edits and your rewrites, and you have people look at your books, and hopefully they catch them. And y'all, we all make mistakes, so your mistakes, you can learn from them, and you catch them, and you can make changes and stuff to them too. Last question, you with the blue watch on your hand there with the rainbow pajamas or something? In real life, the real dog Sammy is still alive. He is 18 years old, so he's old as dirt, and he lives in Nashville, Tennessee. He's up there trying to make sure Morgan Wallen stays out of trouble, but he don't do a good job of it. But y'all, I'll answer some questions on the way out today. We need everybody to be like super quiet. So if you're wearing like a black t-shirt and you're talking to your friends, you got to stop. If your dog says dolphins on your shirt, you got to quit talking. I'm going to call out some names here in a second for some folks to come down and get their books, so we got to quietly listen for that. I do want to let you know that if you didn't get a chance to order a book and you maybe change your mind, we're going to give your teachers all some new order forms that look like this. If you're in kindergarten, the order forms will go home with you from your classrooms. If you're in 4th or 5th grade, there'll be some extra order forms here in the library. You can come and get one tomorrow. But if you'd like to order one of my books, talk to your folks about it tonight. Have them fill out your order form, and you can bring those in tomorrow, Wednesday, or Thursday and still get an autographed, personalized, signed copy of any of the books. How many of y'all do want to order a book now that y'all seen how cool and awesome? All right, y'all, just count it all, y'all. And I really want to upgrade my boat this summer, but my wife won't let me do it until we upgrade our house, so I need y'all's help here. These folks have already turned theirs in, so if I call out your name, come down quickly and grab your book. I got Faith or Grace Wilburn.
You can both go down. They're both.
All right, both of y'all come on down. And then we got Annabelle Cheshire.